let's go ahead and kick it off then, and let's start with some story though. Let's dive into your backstory and tell us a little bit how you got into internet marketing and started your online business. I like to get the story in there as well.
The story of internet marketing. You want the real story that I've never told
I
anybody?
want I want the raw, uncensored story.
Um, so I'm gonna try to keep it as short as possible, but I'll get right to the point. 2008, graduated college. I'm sorry, 2006. 2008, started a real estate business. A friend of mine came up who I went to college with. His name was Jay. Still friends to this day, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to flip houses with me?" And I was like, what? I'm like, that would be my dream. Get out of my job. And like, my job is horrible. And so I was working this sales job at the time, making 30 grand a year. And I was cold calling businesses to businesses up in Skokie in northern Chicago. And it was the most difficult and kind of like just, but also at the same, like it got me out of my comfort zone, like, to actually start doing sales. So, anyways, long story short is I had to quit that job, and like my health wasn't doing so well at the time. Like I just wasn't really feeling well, and at the same time, I was doing outside sales. Here's the real story: is I got a suspended driver's license.
Mm-hmm.
And on the theme of all reality, I was driving on a suspended license, going to my territory. This was the time when we had Blackberries,
Mm-hmm.
so 2008, I think it was, or maybe 2007. And so the Blackberries, the maps didn't work too well on the phones quite yet, not like that now. So I was
Right.
looking at a map actually, and I rear-ended a lady,
Oh wow.
and I was on a suspended license. And I was just like, oh my God, this is the worst thing that could possibly happen. And so I get out of the car and I was like, I'm so sorry. It was my fault. I made a mistake. I was looking at the map. I wasn't paying attention and I really apologize. And she looks down at my car. She looks down at her car. And then she's like, oh, it's no problem. And then drives off. And I'm just like, thank you. Thank you. And then I quit my job after that, because I just realized I can't be doing these things, and like taking these risks and just living irresponsibly. And so I quit my job. It was right as how it happened was like I was going to get into the real estate. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to get my broker's license.
Yeah.
So I quit my job, studied to get my broker's license in 30 days in Illinois. And as I was doing it, that's when my friend came to me and said, hey, you want to flip houses? So we ended up getting into that business. And the business was half investing in real estate and half selling real estate education. I was more interested in selling the real estate education because I was pretty good at sales. And the commission structure was as follows. The program, the college for real estate was $20,000 and they paid a $10,000 commission.
Wow.
The money that I was making in my last job was like I'd make like $20 on a sale and I'd be pounding pavement in the winter in a suit, a cheap baggy suit, collecting business cards and getting yelled at for not, getting enough leads in the day.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was like, bro, I could sell this. You didn't even have to sell me. I could sell this. And so I went all in. He didn't want to do sales. He went all in on the real estate. I went all in on the marketing. And that's how I got my start in my first business. But where that, and we could, always come back to that, but where that led into is that I started using the internet for leads.
Mm-hmm.
And I met a friend, Gabe Strom, who was in the same business, the same network marketing business. And Gabe showed me on how he was using YouTube. And we were making money in this business and whatnot, but he showed me YouTube and I was like, whoa, and like blogging and all this. And we started getting into it in Facebook and just realizing that this was a whole new way to connect with people. So he introduced me to this program called Magnetic Sponsoring by the guy named of sell more in our network marketing business. And he showed me on how to put ads on Craigslist or, like, hey, if you just get people to click this link and buy the book, you'll make a $10 commission. So I loaded up Craigslist with full of ads and to sell my affiliate link through the book. And that was when I made my first sale online. Somebody bought this $10 book, and I made like I don't know, something like a $10
Yeah.
commission. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is possible.
Yeah.
Like,
You
I'm
just cut
like,
out for a second, but just to clarify, the book you read was Magnetic Sponsoring by Mike Dillard, which is freaking a phenomenal book, and it's one of my,
grab it if I
the
still.
funny thing is, like, that book, I know it was written geared towards network marketers, but if you're just marketing in general or trying to do business online in general, I mean, it's such a good read still, even if you're not in network marketing. Such a good book.
Yeah, just all about attracting, like, attracting things in our life. And that was a breakthrough. I mean, everything at that point was a breakthrough. And, from there, we got onto Twitter, and I experienced my really first thing with ClickBank. And, basically, one of my buddies invented Twitter spam. And so, like, the automatic direct messages that you get, like, from people, he invented that, and I had no idea at the time.
Uh-huh.
He's just like, put this affiliate link in there, and automate it using the software. And I literally, like, turned it on, and I was making like $80 a day
Wow.
selling these product on ClickBank. And I was like, I'm gonna be rich. I tapped into the internet code, like, holy, we're printing money here. This is what they talk. And that didn't last too long. He got shut down, and it just didn't do well.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. That's cool. I mean, a lot of this stuff I'm hearing for the first time, and, we were actually business partners for a while, which we'll get into in a minute, but
Yeah,
it's
we
kind
never
of,
talked about it.
but we never really went into a lot of these stories, but that's cool. So, all right, so you were on Twitter. You were spamming people on Twitter, making about $80 a day, spamming people to ClickBank affiliate links on Twitter.
Yeah.
But you were starting to tell me that fell apart.
Yeah, the guy who created the software got busted by Twitter, and I just didn't even know. Like, I was just like, yeah, set up. It was like a way to, like, help automate. It was more of an automation tool to automate your messages,
Uh-huh.
and saying, hey, if you want to automate your Twitter messages too, you can use this software. Here's an affiliate link. So yeah, that, like, and it burnt out, and then I also realized that, yeah, it's probably not the best way to make money. So that was really, like, the first times I ever made money. And then I ended up getting into blogging and doing a lot of blogging. And
So what happened with the real estate selling stuff? I'm not sure if you cut out when during that transition or what happened, but you were selling the real estate stuff. You were making basically a $10,000 commission on the real estate stuff for each sale. So you got really excited about that. You got Magnetic Sponsoring. You learned how to use the internet to try to drive leads. But then I feel like it kind of jumped straight to the Twitter thing. What happened with the real estate stuff?
So that started in, like, about 2007. I went to study a lot of real estate investment education. What ended up happening over time is I kind of burnt out on, doing the real estate, investment. Like, we never really even got into that, but I just, lost focus. I didn't want to do it anymore. So back to the start on the selling side of it. In the first 4 months, I didn't make a dime.
Oh yeah.
I was struggling. I was struggling so hard. I was so broke. Like, I was real broke. Like, not only just, like, I had all my college loans and whatnot, but, like, I was just so broke. It was just not even funny. So, I was hurting at the time, and then I, also to pay for, to go to the college myself. It was a rough stretch. And then all of a sudden I had a bit of a breakthrough, and I went from that to, like, doing, like $1,750 in like my fifth month. And then it was like, it happened something like the fourth month was 1,500. The fifth month was like 8,000, then 13,000, and then I made $30,000 in 1 month selling the program. And I was set. I had everything lined up. My pipeline was full to do $60,000 the following month. Like, it was starting to take off, and I literally crashed and burned. Like, it was I bought a Mercedes. I
Mhm.
bought these baggy suits that I thought looked really cool at the time. There's some
Nice.
kind of picture floating around online in those suits, and like, um, my mindset was just so off, and I man, I just hit a wall, and I really started to struggle. I was drinking at the time, probably pretty heavily, and it just wasn't a good space to be in. And I had all these expenses. I didn't know what it meant to really be an entrepreneur. I was just kind of following what people told me to do and do what I thought was right. So um, that's what led into a lot of self reflection
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
really going internal. And I just basically took some time off to just read.
Yeah.
And I made this money. I had a little bit of money in the bank left, and so I just ended up, for the next few months, just kind of reading, and then eventually I made a return to the business, and that's kind of when I started blogging and doing all that. I was going on this journey. I eventually returned to the business for like a month or two, had another really solid month, like 17 grand, and then that was it. I was like, I'm done with this. I need to do something else, and that's when I jumped into the online space, and then try to like figure out on how to sell and create my own products and coach people on how to use social media and whatnot.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So after the Twitter stuff, then the ClickBank Twitter stuff, where did you move to?
Um, how did that play out?
Because
I had
you
built
know
up.
how okay, it's interesting. This is how I was sort of introduced to you. This is the very first time the name Bradley Will ever came into my headspace was on a YouTube reality show. There was a
God,
YouTube reality show
yeah,
called Unstrapped, right?
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
and Jason Moffat. I'm good friends with Jason Moffat. He pointed me to the Unstrapped thing. He shared a link to it on Facebook or something, and I went and checked it out based on his recommendation. And I think I watched every single episode of it, and that was the first time I ever heard your name. Was this online reality show, and it was like well done. It was like
Yeah.
pro, like it looked like you had legit camera crews and stuff there and everything. So how did you go from selling affiliate products on Twitter to doing this reality online TV show?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot that went into it, like on how it happened, and like I don't even remember. Like life was just kind of moving really fast at that point. But I ended up partnering with um, this guy, and we built a training course,
Mm-hmm.
a social media training program. We were selling it on webinars, and we were selling it any way we could. I did a speaking engagement and sold from stage, and one person bought, and then they ended up wanting a refund. I think it was like $400 for like this like 13-week coaching program. It was ridiculous, and the first time we sold it was on a teleseminar.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had built this network in real estate, and so like we were getting everybody on a conference call because that's how we would sell back in the day. And I even had one of my mentors from the real estate business helping me with the close
Right.
to sell people into the program. And I remember after I was doing this out of my parents' house, this teleconference in the basement or wherever I can get some free space to talk because we live in a small house. And I remember we closed and we sent them to a link, and I looked at the sales and I literally broke down in tears because we made our first couple of sales. Like it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
anything remarkable. It was probably less than $1,000 of sales. But what happened is prior to that, teleconference, like we were kind of doing like launching this product. We were doing whatever we could to sell it. Is that right before the call, that lady who I sold from stage, who I used that money to pay for the GoToWebinar software.
Mm-hmm.
So she paid me for this product, and we didn't have this coaching program. I used all that money for design and to pay for the software. Right before we were doing the teleseminar, she called me and said I wanted a refund. And so I didn't tell my partner at the time because I didn't want to, like him to be devastated by that. But like we were like negative. We
Mm-hmm.
didn't. Both of us were broke and we didn't have any money, and it was just like, what are we gonna do? And
Mm-hmm.
so after that conference call where we made a couple sales, I like broke down and started crying because I told him afterwards, I was like, what you didn't know is that, this lady refunded, and we have to come up with the money to pay her back and pay
Right.
for, everything that we did. So that was the first bit of sales. And then after that, I partnered with a guy who came up with this concept of building blogs and, doing it. I'll build your blog for free if you buy through my hosting account.
Right.
And so I figured it would be a great match because we have this training program and they have this little system they set up with the web pages. Let's just partner all together and bring all four of us together and have 4 business partners and let's start rolling with it. And actually it started doing really well. Like before we ended up doing that whole reality show and all that, we ended up hitting like $10,000 a month in doing these hosting commissions and with this whole, setup process. So that idea and that spark of the idea, was like, hey, this could be so much bigger. We can grow this. And that's eventually what we, when we got into the whole reality show, that's just a story in itself. Like it would take us hours to talk about that.
And that's how Free Blog Factory was created.
That's how it was created. Like they had this setup process, and then we came up with the name Free Blog Factory, and then it made it much more complicated than it should be, but it worked. And our whole idea was that we were an affiliate of somebody. Let's set up our own affiliate program, and let's pay all the people we know in our network $50 every time they refer us somebody. So people then started bringing us traffic. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, in just a couple months, we became the top affiliate at HostGator. We did 750 hosting sales in 1 month.
Wow.
And it was just like unbelievable because we had people sending us traffic, and then we were, building the site. So it was pretty.
And when you become an affiliate of hosting too, it's like they start to give you sort of special tier pricing that's not available to the general affiliates, and you can, you earn more than most affiliates doing that. So like somebody at HostGator that might be making $75 a sale, if you're making the kind of volume you're doing, you might be making $150 a sale instead,
Yeah, I don't even know if it was against the terms of service or not. Probably not even legit. But I knew the people at HostGator. I built a relationship with the CEO and the founder at the time, and the whole team. And so the relationships were more important than anything. Like that's, and I still keep those relationships today, and they're very important to me. But that's kind of how we started. It was just more so just being an affiliate is selling other people's products.
Yeah, I've got to ask about the reality thing. Now, was that something like internal, like one of you guys said, hey, let's turn this into a reality show, or did somebody approach you and suggest doing a reality show?
I remember it really clearly. Like I was in my bedroom / office in my parents' house, and we were all on a conference call, and we were, and I say I had 5 or 6 business partners. And so we were like, we had no idea what we were doing. Like we were it was a mess. Right. But we got to embrace that. So we were on a conference call and we were talking, and we're like, dude, we should document everything that we're doing. Like things are starting to take off. We just hit $10,000 in commissions and revenue for the business, which was basically pure profit. Our margins were so high on that offer. And we're like, we should film what this is like to build an online business. Like this is the dream. And let's document it. And so we were like, yeah, let's do these little YouTube, videos and just, all get flip cams and start recording it. And, one of the guys, had this grandiose vision of like, let's do it bigger.
Yeah.
Let's have a professional film crew follow us around. And we on the call, we're like, we need to be in the same area. I was in, Chicago. One guy was in Texas. Another guy was in Chicago. Another guy was in Virginia. Another guy was in New York. We're like, we can't do this virtually. And we all had met almost through that, first business entirely. So we're like, where is the best place to live on earth? And we threw some ideas. Chicago, no, it gets cold in the winter. Texas, And then somebody's like, California. And we're like, yes. And we were all scared shitless. We were just like, oh my gosh, like I've never even been to the West Coast. So we decided on it, and we said, all right, we're going to do it. we found online a mansion. It was a 7,000 square foot mansion. It was a little bit beat up, but it was like a marble palace.
Mm-hmm.
And it was $10,000 a month to live there. And we all moved into this mansion, because we figured it would be cheaper than to do anything else if we were all living and working in this house. It had 3 balconies. It was just unbelievable. And we all just packed our cars and literally packed up our lives and just left and all moved into this house together. And that was it. And the reality show kind of started of like just over the top. Like it became a huge distraction because like we did hire on a professional film crew and like we were spending more money on the reality show that it was just like became about the show than it did about the business. So
Yeah.
it was an internal idea. And it just, kind of, it kind of took over, we lost sight of what we were really doing.
Yeah. Well, I thought the concept was
fun.
really cool. When I watched it, I thought the concept was really cool, and I got into it and wanted to watch all the episodes and that sort of thing. But I can see how when the business itself is investing that much money in it, it's hard to see an ROI from something like that. I mean, you have people like me who found out about you because of it, so it obviously had some impact. But I guess in retrospect, it probably wasn't the greatest investment in terms of creating an ROI for the business.
Yeah, in hindsight, it's 2020. I see it perfectly clear.
Yeah. So you ran Free Blog Factory. Free Blog Factory. I mean, what happened with that?
We ended up growing it really well. I mean, we got to a point where it was doing. I don't know the specifics, but I think our best month was about $64,000 in revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And but you got to think like our expenses were through the roof. $10,000 for the house. We were paying a fortune for the reality show. Like we literally hired. Like it was out of this mansion because we had probably like 15 people like coming and working there on a daily basis, and we didn't have like permits and like. It just caused this huge stir in the town. Like people were pissed off about it because we lived in this neighborhood where there was all these, older folks that kind of moved there to like settle down, and we're bringing kind of like all this chaos and there's cameras and just like it was nuts, cars lining the street. So, eventually over time, it like there was a rift between partners and. We all have our own side of, the story on, what happened, but it was just, we were young and green and, it just kind of slowly fell apart and just too many things involved, too many visions involved, too many ideas. And, we eventually, this rift began to grow and one by one, we just kind of, were, starting to turn against each other. And eventually, we ended up all going in different directions and splitting the business or splitting ways in the business and going from there. So it was a really tough time, bro. It was probably one of the most challenging moments in my life because some of the things that happened, some of the things that were said, it was, some things that I don't even know if I'm allowed to talk about because there was some legal stuff that happened between it all, but it was a really tough moment, and but it all worked out for the best of us because everybody I assume is doing pretty well now.
But you ended up with the Free Blog Factory brand. You ended up with the brand and that side of the business. And at the time I was running the WordPress classroom, and you approached me. I think the first time we actually met was at it was at that copywriting seminar, the John Carlton one. I think that was the first time we met. We kind of tossed around some ideas about working together, and then I think we kind of shelved it for like 2 years or something, and then circled back around to it in 2013 and decided to kind of merge the WordPress classroom with Free Blog Factory, and that became Learn to Blog.
Yeah, it was interesting. I always respected what you were doing. I watched you from afar because the talent that you had from doing the tutorials. I was like, man, I wish. Because I just had this marketing mind, like I loved blogging and doing the writing for myself, but it was all, about like, I could sell that. Like, that's
Mhm.
really good. And I wish I had that. I remember like, hey, can we, just trying to like plant some seeds. But originally we started as like affiliates of each
Mhm.
other and just would, kind of promote loosely each other's products. But I remember the moment distinctly when we were talking on the call and you were like, yeah, I own learntoblog.com. I was like, what? I'm like, this could be big, man. We could do something here. And I was like, I was so excited to work with you and partner up, and that was a real fun time.
Yeah, that was cool. So do you want to kind of talk about the progression of Learn to Blog and you go ahead and tell that story?
Sure. Let's. I mean,
I mean,
I think
we
that's
can.
also a discussion, because you have also an interesting perspective on how we, like, you know from what happened and us building that from scratch. It's probably something that I'm most proud of, is that like we didn't know what we were doing and we just kind of figured it all out and just meshed personalities together, and it was really an interesting experience.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I look back during Learn to Blog, in the few years that we ran that, and I mean, I light up when I talk about Learn to Blog as that's a baby that we created. It's
Yeah.
like something that I still think is amazing, and I still get into that Facebook group, and I still see people commenting about like the blogs that they're building, and I still go in and comment, and I'm like so just like overjoyed with what it's kind of become over the years. So, but basically, Learn to Blog was the WordPress classroom, but I wanted to take it. We wanted to take it to the next level. The WordPress classroom was, as the name implies, purely about WordPress. But the whole idea of blogging and creating a successful blog is so much more than just the platform that you're building it on, which is why I wanted to evolve it into Learn to Blog. And the timing all seemed to come together because you had the free blog factory and you had this system, and we thought of this way to let's really push hosting, make money on hosting, but also let's continue to evolve this training, and that's what Learn to Blog became. So
Yeah.
now let's fast forward to where we are today. And you're the 100% owner of Learn to Blog. You own it
Yes.
outright. And we don't really have to get into the discussion of why I'm not involved in Learn to Blog. I mean, I think it just kind of it really came down to the fact that I kind of I don't know how to explain it, but it kind of got to this point where I just felt like I wanted to do something different. I mean, after teaching
Yeah.
blogging and after teaching WordPress and that kind of stuff for 6 years, it was just kind of like the passion on the topic had kind of started to fade a little bit, and I didn't want to be teaching something where the passion wasn't completely there for me. But the thing about the whole transition was it's probably the most amicable sort of like split that can ever possibly happen, because I
Yeah.
mean we're probably just as good of friends now not being partners in Learn to Blog as we were during Learn to Blog.
Yeah, the advice that I got, and you got just through the whole thing from, just that's just the importance of relationships and having mentors and people to go to is just like, I remember the both of us just like, dude, let's, work something out that's going to be a win-win situation for everybody. But back to what you were saying about like, leaving and all that, I'm not the easiest guy to work with. And I think the conversation that we were having before we hit the record button was, I feel like I finally got my mojo back,
Mm.
like getting back to why I even got into it in the first place. And I think a lot of the decisions, or where at least my headspace was about the money, and it was about, like instead of creating value, it was, I don't want to say entirely because I really enjoyed it, but more so losing sight of why I got into it in the first place.
Mm.
And so that I feel like is what made a lot of the passion to burn out. It's like, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs go through that of
Yeah.
like this evolution of like being an artist and tapping into our creativity, and then all of a sudden that gets infiltrated by money because we need to support ourselves and make a living. And then we see the possibility of like people are willing to pay for this stuff. Like
Yeah.
this is awesome. And then like without staying true to those roots, I definitely lost sight of
Mm.
what that was, and I'm, we've already, talked about this and made up and hugged about it and whatnot. But I think that was a really valuable learning lesson of like it's like always like, what if I was in this right space, what could have happened? But it was the greatest thing that could happen because, at the time you were having a kid
Hmm.
and you were able to, like you loved doing the training and experimenting and like, putting together little training videos. And so I think it allowed us to kind of like get the headspace to like
Yeah.
really discover ourselves.
Well, here's something that I found interesting, and I actually you can't see it, but I have a whiteboard over this way, and on my whiteboard I have this thing that says like things that I know to be true, and it's funny because you listen to the Lewis Howes podcast, and one of his, he always has these questions at the end that he asks people, and one of the questions that he always asks people at the end of like every episode is, looking back on your life, what are three things that you know to be true, right? And so I actually have like on my whiteboard like truths written, and then I kind of like stuff that I know kind of that I've learned to be facts about myself. I kind of write on there and kind of just always keep them in mind.
What's one of them?
And one of them that I wrote is that I'm the happiest when I'm trying to reinvent myself. So one thing that I've found to be true about myself is that I'm always the happiest when I'm in a phase of reinvention and exploration and trying to figure out what's next. When things start to get stale, that's when I tend to get unhappy, and when I start, looking around for other things to be working on, things to be doing. But I'm happiest when I'm constantly reinventing myself. The other thing that I know to be true is that I love the conversations, which is why I keep coming back to a podcasting model.
Yeah.
Is I love conversations with people. I love talking to like-minded people and just having conversations that I'm engaged in and that really get me thinking and stuff. So those are kind of two of the truths that I put up on my wall there. But the reinvention thing is something that was like a huge breakthrough for me, is that I'm the happiest when I'm constantly reinventing. So I needed to figure out sort of a business model that I could constantly be reinventing the business model, which is why I'm doing the podcasting and the blogging and trying to figure this whole thing out now full time.
Staying uncomfortable.
Basically staying uncomfortable,
Yeah.
So I find that fascinating. But one thing, and this is something that I feel like you're doing now, is you're kind of sort of reinventing what Learn to Blog is by doing this whole 30-day challenge thing. So let's kind of dive in and talk about that just for a second. What is the 30-day challenge?
The 30-day challenge is a challenge that I initiated for the community, customers, and even non-customers of Learn to Blog. And the whole idea is simple: publish one piece of content per day, every day for 30 days. Mm-hmm. And that's the actual getting in and writing it and actually hitting the publish button, because there's something that's special that happens in overcoming the fear of actually just clicking publish. So yeah, it's just simple, and I've organized it inside of a Facebook group, so it's an everyday community where everybody's in there and writing and posting and support each other.
So how does the system work? Are you in there every day reminding everybody, hey, who's got your blog posts up today? I mean, what's the accountability aspect to it?
It's a good question. I had no idea. I've never done anything like this before, and I was like afraid to even do it. Like I almost didn't do it. And somebody, this guy that was working with me told me, he said, Bradley, I know you. And he said, I know you're not going to like this. You're going to, he was implying that I was going to be overwhelmed by this, mm-hmm. because his experience of me was overwhelmed. Like, we're trying these different ideas. And that was the kick in the gut I needed, because that was the realization of like, this is how I'm showing up to everybody in the world. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it takes that moment to have a shift and to be able to look at and have the awareness to look at ourselves from a 10,000 foot view. And so I had never done it before. It was like a stupid business decision on my mind because it wasn't going to make money. And then he was telling me like, yeah, this is not the right fit. And I knew in that moment I had to do it, even though I didn't feel qualified to teach it. Mm-hmm. And to lead it, because I've never done it before. So what I did is I put up a blog post about the challenge. I did a simple lead box, so they click the button and they can fill out a registration form. And on that form, I wanted to know a couple things: name, email, do you have a blog, yes or no? And are you a learn to blog? Or actually, I'm sorry, it determined in Infusionsoft if they are a learn to blog customer or not, because I wanted to see how many people are actually customers and wanting to use this challenge. And then I did a series of promotions, and after everybody is registered, they get a link to the exclusive Facebook group, and it's a private group where everything's managed. And what happens is every single day I make a post, and on that post it says today is day 13. Well, today is actually the 15th, so today's December 1st, day 15, and I give them, there's a simple instruction: post on this thread below, and I'll have a thought of the day, just an inspirational quote. And then, so every day, all the posts are organized in a thread, and I repin that post. So day 15 is pinned in the Facebook group, and then everybody goes and posts their day 15 on that post. If they miss a day, they go back, and I have in the files section inside the Facebook group a link to all the past days, and they can just simply go back and post in the thread. So that way, it's all organized, and we could just see and count on how many posts that have been created, and the impact that we are making.
So what have the results been so far?
So the results, starting from the beginning, we had 530 people register. Confirmed emails about 500, and then the people that actually joined the Facebook group from there, 350. And I say roughly 1/3 of those people were actual customers. And a lot of them didn't have a blog. I don't know what the number was. It was like 50-50 didn't have a blog. So we're talking like complete newbies.
And then what percentage were already customers?
Customers, I think it was around 30%.
So you were getting a lot of new leads through this too.
New leads, yeah. I didn't do an incredible amount of promotion. It was mostly through the list and just, through fan pages. But people also started referring friends to it. And so, looking back, I would do a much bigger promotional effort and planning for it now that I know what goes into it. But I had a close date, because what was happening is people were starting to trickle in and joining late and not reading the emails. And then they don't know the organization of the group. Like, they're lost in there, and they're just posting links everywhere, just posting their links to the group. And it's chaos, and there's got to be a little bit of structure to it. So, out of the 350 people in the Facebook group, roughly about 240 of them have written at least one blog post. And then out of the 240 in day 15, probably the number I'm most proud of, we are right at about just under 2,000 blog posts published by this group.
And how many people are that are participating every single day?
There's probably a good 100 that are, I don't know, I'd have to look, because a member of the group actually they stepped up and volunteered to record everything. So she put a Google Doc with all the names, and then like a one next to each date in the columns,
right,
and tracked everybody's progress in there. It's really cool to see. And then we got a running scoreboard of the impact that we're making. But right now we're seeing the holidays, it dipped down. It started at 230 people on like the first day. Now on day 15, we're seeing right just under about 100 people posting per day. So it trickled off. The holiday, it took a big hit, Thanksgiving. But now I think we're kind of leveling off at about like 180 to 100.
That's cool. Yeah. So what sort of results have the people that are actually going through the challenge? What sort of results have you been hearing back from them?
The results have been, I think before talking about the results, it's really important to look at why this has been so effective. And especially having a discussion with you, because our targeting, we've spent, when we were working together, probably, over $300,000 on Facebook ad spend.
Right.
And, bringing leads into the company. And, most of our offers were based around making money with your blog and making a successful blog. And what was really interesting to see is completely flipping the angle of making it about the art, returning to the creativity. And once I've positioned that through the challenge, a lot of the people were just so inspired that it didn't matter what it looked like. It didn't matter about the plugins or the technology or the money. We removed all of that pressure off of their shoulders and just publish one per day. And I can't even tell you how many people have written their first blog post. That was some of the most, so many messages that were posted like, this is my first blog post.
Yeah.
And just like people are realizing they're finding their voice, they're discovering their voice, they're understanding that they don't have to have a niche, they don't have to have an end game figured out. What you need is to start creating, because through creation creates inspiration. And the root of the word inspire, from the book Aspire by Kevin Hall, he talks about inspire truly means at its core to breathe life into. So inspiring somebody is to breathe life into. So when we are inspired, we are putting life into ourselves. And what I feel is that everything in their lives, people are saying I've had, conversations with my family that I've never had before. And I've talked about topics that I've never had before. And just like all these different breakthroughs that are coming because of them inspiring themselves through this creativity. And I think the end game, if they want to make money with their blog, it all starts at the core of being inspired.
Very cool.
And even me, I'm more inspired by talking about some of the things that I've been afraid to talk about and afraid to click publish. So it's been really good to lead by example and not lead from a megaphone saying do this and do that, but just actually getting in the trenches and doing it myself and showing people that this is how you do it.
Yeah. And it's interesting, and I think we actually had this conversation once before, is that, when it comes to blogging and creating content, one of the quotes that's always sort of inspired me and driven me to when I create my content was by James Altucher, when he said, I don't even know what book it is, and I'm probably going to butcher the quote, but he said that he doesn't publish a blog post unless he's scared to hit publish, because he likes to write, he likes to let the vulnerability come through, he likes to talk about things that make him uncomfortable, that make other people uncomfortable. So his rule of thumb is if he reads a blog post and it's all fluffy and happy, he probably won't publish it. He won't publish the post unless he feels uncomfortable publishing it. And I feel that the line for what people feel uncomfortable with is going to be different for everybody. And a lot of the people you're working with, their line is real low. They're uncomfortable people seeing their name online. There's people that they're uncomfortable, posting a single sentence on their blog and just having it out there for the world to see. Where people like me and you, our comfort line is, probably letting people into more intimate details of our personal lives. Those lines are different, but getting people to just get past that very first lower line, I feel like that's what this challenge is doing. It's getting them past that lower line of uncomfortable so that they can have a new line, a new ceiling to try to break past. And I feel like that's what this 30-day challenge is really doing for people.
Matt, you and I went through this, leadership training. And one thing that I realized in going through this training that you and I went through is that the challenge is just a mirror. I tell people, this is not a challenge. Forget about the novelty of a challenge. This is about using this challenge as a mirror in our lives and to reflect back on how we are doing things and realizing what we are truly capable of. You and I, we were going through this leadership training as we're building this business, and we realized how much more we can do. As we were completely packed in our schedule and so overwhelmed, we had some of our best months financially by taking on more and realizing what our ceiling truly is. Creating a whole new ceiling for ourselves.
Yeah.
So I think that also is people are starting to realize is that the ones that said, I don't have the time or I'm too busy or this. No, it's not that you don't have the time. You have to reinvent what you think about blogging. Blogging doesn't have to be a pillar post. And it doesn't have to be one thing. You and I like to do a lot of pillar posts or research driven. I can't do this in this challenge.
Right.
there's not enough time to do those. We've spent 40 plus hours putting a pillar post together and researching and,
Mm-hmm.
doing that. It's just not possible in this challenge. So it required me and everybody else to reinvent how we think about blogging and to make it our own canvas. And if somebody in the group is running a successful business and they just don't have the time, okay, then reinvent the way you think about blogging. Use video if you have to.
Right.
Just hit publish and don't let the challenge don't let it define you, or like you have to fit into a box. Create your own box for it.
Right, right. And you look at like Seth Godin's blog, who I pretty much read it every day. That's like Seth Godin's blog is like my morning inspiration because he blogs every single day without fail. There's a new post, but every once in a while you'll go on there and a blog post might be 2 sentences. The blog that you put out there online is whatever you make of it. You get to create, like, it's your property online. You create what you want it to be. And I think a lot of people think of blogging and content marketing as I need to create these pillar posts. And yes, those pillar posts do help drive people to your site, but you get to create what your blog is. You get to put your own personality in it. You get to make it what you want it to be. And so I think the challenge is just a great exercise. And I've done it myself. I've gone through a 30-day thing where I said, I'm going to blog every single day for 30 days. And, you hit some days where day 19, you have no idea what to write. It's 11:30 at night and you're like, well, crap, I better get something on this blog. You put out something that's 4 sentences long, or you shoot a video with your iPhone and embed it real quick. But you know what? You're pushing forward and you get it done.
That feeling of accomplishment and accountability is just like, it's like, we run these online businesses and sometimes that accountability can easily slip away. And, that's also been the actual publishing and posting the group is the final check mark of like, I've accomplished this for the day. And people even say that, like, I was, brain dead and I didn't have anything to talk about, but here's my post just to get it out. And it's just amazing that like what people are doing is like, they're just, it's, a lot of it is like journaling too. It's like this reflection that they're sharing with the world, and it's really liberating for them to put out there. So that's just so exciting, man.
It's funny because one thing I journal a lot too. Like I don't think people completely realize the quantity that I write on a daily basis, how much I write, because I put out blog posts, but I also journal every single day without fail. I mean, you probably remember when we were in Baltimore, we got home from like the Orioles game at, midnight, and I was like, well, shit, I got to write my blog today. And I whipped out my laptop, and in the middle of the night, I was sitting there writing on the laptop in the hotel room.
Matt, let me see your notes.
I make sure I write every single day, but I journal a lot. And I find that the act of writing every day brings out ideas and thoughts that are in my head that I don't even realize are there, because when you start to write, stuff comes from the subconscious that aren't on the tip of your brain, that you're not constantly thinking about. But when you just start letting things flow, stuff comes from the subconscious that you didn't even realize were buried in there. And I just find it to be the most I don't really know how to describe it, but it's just something that almost all of my ideas, almost all of the paths that I've taken in my life have come from, I've been sitting there writing in my journal, something came out that I didn't realize was in the back of my mind, and it led me to think deeper about it and then take action on it. And I just think that habit of writing every day is one of the most powerful things anybody can do.
Yeah, it's just amazing. Like, just hearing you talk about it, it's like the charge that, I got up last night. I woke up at 2 a.m. and I was so inspired, and I just I was writing about an idea that just came to me, and of something that I want to launch, and then I started writing. It kind of converted into like a blog post about our ideas don't have a curfew. Mm-hmm. We cannot. Some people might just jot a note down in the middle of the night if they have an idea, but if my theory of ideas are inspiration and the meaning of inspire is life, we need to pour gasoline on it. If we have an idea in the middle of the night, that's beautiful. Like, I wish more lights would be flickering on and off in the city in Chicago of people just so inspired at 3 a.m. that they have to get up and pour gas on it and let it flow and sit there and do the work and just write for 30 minutes until you're done, until you're done with that idea and that thought. Because so many times, in the middle of the night, or like I'll write down a little note and I'm just like, I don't even know what that means. Like I don't even know what that, like like to come back to something. What if you don't come back to that idea? Like what if last night I just said, think about this tomorrow, and I'm like, I don't even know what I was thinking about. Instead, I wrote this beautiful blog post. And I think that journaling and like actually allowing ourselves the freedom to, like, what if somebody told Elon Musk that you shouldn't stay up late working on your ideas, or, like go back to bed, man, and limited his ideas of like, like all the things he's doing to change the world. So like, exactly what you're saying is that's where things come from, and that spills over to other people.
Yeah, one cool little tip too, and this is something that I heard. I actually think Jarek Robbins was talking about this. You know Jarek, right? Yeah, so Jarek was talking about this, and it's kind of, it comes back to Tony Robbins' sort of anchoring thing. But when I want to write and when I want to think of ideas, I have a specific spot that I go to for ideas, to write ideas, to think about ideas. When I'm in my office, you can see I'm facing my computer right now. And people listening to the podcast in the members area will be able to see this video, but I'm looking at my computer right now, but I've got a desk that's an L shape. And if I turn this way, you can see right here, I've got a whiteboard over on the side. And it's because when I'm in I need some ideas, I need some inspiration, I need to think about what I'm going to work on next. I turn my chair this way and I work this way at my computer, and that puts my brain into idea mode. It's like an anchoring thing that I get ideas when I'm over on this part of my computer. This is work mode. This is think and inspiration mode. And
so it's kind of like your sacred space.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, but it's when I'm facing this way and I'm working in that direction and this part of my desk, I tend to the ideas flow better. And I've got a yellow notepad that I always keep on my desk. I'm almost done with this notepad because I'm just constantly writing stuff down all the time. And that's how I do it. And at my house, it's my jacuzzi. I go in my jacuzzi every single night almost, and that's when all my ideas. I bought a special little waterproof case for my iPad. And the reason I bought a waterproof case for my iPad is I get so many ideas when I'm sitting in the jacuzzi. So my iPad sits on the side of the jacuzzi, and when I get an idea, I pop open Evernote on my iPad because I can't bring a notepad into my spa with me. And I open up my Evernote, my iPad, and I jot down all my notes in the spa every night. So I have like specific places that I go when I need to think about what I'm going to write about, or what I'm going to talk about on my podcast, or where I'm going to shift my business to next. I have very specific spots that I've anchored to. These are my idea spots.
Just curious, I just moved into a new place and I don't really have that sacred spot.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things I was thinking about yesterday, is like having that place, and I think I want to make it like right here in my office where I have a comfy chair and whatnot. But
for me, it's literally just pivoting, just turning my chair, and it's an L-shaped desk. So if I'm facing this way, my brain kind of shifts into one mode, and when I face this way, my brain shifts into another mode.
Just simple as that.
Yeah. It's but I mean, I found that really powerful, and and it was something I kind of did unconsciously until I heard Jarek talking about it, probably on Lewis Howes' podcast, actually. And ever since that, I started to notice that I do have specific spots that the ideas tend to flow easier than other spots. But I do want to bring back to the challenge real quick. And, this podcast is probably longer than most episodes I do, but, you and I have a lot to talk about. So
we got history, man.
We got history. But I want to kind of bring it back to the idea of authority and personal branding, because that's really kind of the overarching theme of this podcast, is the personal branding and the building authority. And I want to talk about how somebody that might have an existing business can use this concept of a 30-day challenge. What sort of advice would you have for somebody that's got a business online? Maybe they're selling products online that aren't in the marketing space or the blogging space. How can somebody else implement a 30-day challenge in their business?
That's a good question. First off, it's really making it about the art. And this, I'm like I was telling you, Matt, I'm pretty tired, man. It's been a whirlwind, but it's been the most fulfilling thing as far as the art goes. And if you are in a dog training business, this could be a great way to create testimonials. And like what if you had, I know dog training in particular, because it does take an everyday thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, just spend 15 minutes per day with your dog, right? And, do, a couple of, corrections, or, whatever it may be. But let's say you have a specific methodology for dog training. You can go out, go to the fan pages, go to your internal list, wherever it takes to market and find people on board to come on for your challenge, and organize it the same way in a Facebook group and make it free, and really discover, and lead the way in doing like one dog lesson per day. So every day well, I don't want to say every day, but almost every day, I just started opening up my phone and shooting a video as well, and clicking publish directly to the group. So I don't edit it. So it's unfiltered, one take and done. It takes 3 to 5 minutes. So somebody else can do it the same way. It doesn't have to be written, but you just get on the grind and go out in there and find the people that would want to participate. It's a great lead generator on the front end. Make them register, make sure you capture the email. And then on the back end, I mean, it could be anything: weight loss, it could be, video, it could be dog training,
Mm-hmm.
it could be anything. But I think making it about the art is, where you'll see the most participation. When it starts being about the business and like, hey, I'm going to make people pay to take the challenge, I think you'll get a huge drop off. And I mean, I'm going to walk away from this with probably, a few hundred just testimonials and
Mm-hmm.
just things that have come out of this, that is you can't put a price on that.
Yeah.
Like getting paid $3,000 or $5,000 for the challenge is not worth it, because of all the results that were created.
You've read that. Everybody's read this article, but have you read the? I think it's Kevin Kelly who wrote the 1,000 True Fans article.
I've heard the concept, but I don't know if I've read the
So
article.
I mean, basically, the concept of the article is to have a very, very successful business and a successful life. All you need is 1,000 true fans. If you have 1,000 true fans that are willing to, buy whatever you put out there, share whatever you create, just having 1,000 true fans is all you really need to have, the life of your dreams and the business of your dreams. And I feel like creating something like a 30-day challenge is a real damn good way to start building that fan base.
You mentioned authority. I think it's what a perfect way to like get in there every day, and for somebody to get to know you and your business. And
Mm-hmm.
I think, you know, it's a great lead generator. It's a great way to really discover what is holding back your clientele. If you're in a
Mm-hmm.
dog training business and you do a 30-day challenge on once per day dog training, you will find every excuse on why people don't do dog training every single day,
Right,
and why
right,
they don't stick with it.
right.
And it's the best way to get intimate and get in bed with your customer or your, subscriber, and find out what their biggest pain points. I feel like I understand so much better who it is that is coming into my business, that and what their problems are, now that I know very clearly on what products to create and what things to offer them.
Yeah. And another sort of side benefit, and I'm not even sure if this is, it's not something we've talked about yet about this, but another side benefit that's kind of just becoming clear to me now is you're sort of conditioning the people who are in the 30-day challenge to hear from you every day. What's one of the biggest issues with email marketing is, it starts to get stale. People, they might get real hot when they're on your list early on, and the first couple weeks your open rates are real high, and then after they've been on your list for a little bit and they've kind of seen what you put out there, they may start to slow down on opening emails. Well, something like a 30-day challenge is really going to condition the people who are following the challenge
Yeah.
to be paying attention to you every single day. And I think
Yeah.
that's a really powerful sort of concept behind this as well.
You mentioned numbers. I'll give some numbers. I mail the 400, or it's just under 500 people, almost on a daily basis, for the challenge. And I know that some of them aren't, actively participating. And so I didn't know of a way to like kind of filter them out. So I just mail them all. The average open rate started at about 50% open
Mm-hmm.
rate, and it's been hovering over 30% open rate, and that's with mailing them every day.
Yeah.
So, you can kind of play with that and, to whatever works well for your business, but somebody could, try, every other day, and they stay really engaged. And like you said, you're training them, wanting to, like, here, this is how we're going to communicate, and setting the kind of the standard of, like, if you want to learn from me, open my emails. And
Mm-hmm.
you're right, yeah, it conditions them. That's a great way to build authority and build the communication and the distribution channel.
Yeah, yeah. Now this, I feel like the 30-day challenge thing is a great sort of thing for anybody that has an education based product. If you're teaching dog training, you're teaching weight training, you're teaching blogging, that sort of thing. I think the 30-day challenge is a no brainer kind of thing to do if you're educating people. Are there any ways that you can think of for somebody that's not in an education based business to implement a 30-day challenge? And I mean, I'm not like, I personally, I don't. I'm struggling to think of a way that somebody that doesn't have an education-based business could do a 30-day challenge. But I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I haven't thought about that. You have any ideas of the types of business you'd think about? Throw one out. Let's see if we can come up with something.
Well, okay. So one of my customers is in the pest control niche. They have a company that does they do pest control. They go out and do house calls and do the pest control stuff. And they're looking to build an online presence. That's why they came to me. They've got they've got a website. They're trying to get people to go to their website and discover them through their websites. They're using content marketing and that sort of thing to attract people to their website. But their main business model is doing the service calls. So that's just kind of a random one that I'm throwing out there. But
Yeah. No, it puts it in perspective, because like being in the most, information business, I think it's really easy, like for somebody that's in coaching or weight loss or, like a service or like information business, you said. I don't honestly know on how somebody would implement that in a like pest control business or, but like let's say like somebody was in a one of our old clients was in a spice business,
right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You could do a 30-day cooking at home challenge, 30-day
Mm-hmm.
clean eating, cooking at home challenge. And in a spice business, obviously you sell spices, but like, you could do like recipes of like, hey, post one picture per day of the meal that you make for your family. And it's all about good eating and returning to the roots of, like nutrition and rediscovering new cooking methods and new spices and things that are going to heal our body. Yeah, pest control is a tough one, but like there's ways to do it like that. But I think the big thing for those types of business owners to keep in mind is to not make it about selling your product, making it about what you said is the authority, is
Right.
becoming an authority figure. Because when you see a lot of the guys, like we know Lewis Howes didn't spend the past 4 years trying to sell all of his product. I mean, he did sell his product. It was more about the authority and more about the relationships and the platform, because the platform is invaluable. Like once you have that, the communication channel. So that's a long answer to say, yeah, like there's probably some, and there's probably some that it's not the right fit for,
Yeah.
and maybe
Well,
they can use other strategies.
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it's not about selling your product, it's about building that authority. So even if you are in the pest control niche, just a random niche like that, don't think about what 30-day challenge could I do to get people to try to buy my services, but what 30-day challenge could I do to prove to people that I'm an authority in my niche. Maybe your 30-day challenge is this is completely random because I know nothing about the pest control niche, but maybe your 30-day challenge is to every day you're looking for a sign of a different type of rodent that exists in your house or something, and you're educating people on how to inspect for it themselves, and you're doing some 30-day challenge on how to inspect for this stuff yourself around your house. That builds you as an authority in the pest control niche, but it might not necessarily sell your products, but you're trying to build that authority so when they do need the pest control people, you're top of mind.
You know what? That's a really you just sparked an idea, and this could be completely devastating to the pest control business. But if your 30-day challenge is like you're selling pest control, it's not about pest control, it's about pest prevention. Really what it is. People want to have in the pest control business a bunch of clientele that have, sloppy, messy houses because that's what's going to attract the pests and they get to control them. But if you really wanted to do and establish yourself as authority figure in the pest control business, do a once per day cleaning challenge of cleaning your, making sure your house is clean, making sure the dishes are done, making sure the trash is taken out, making sure that there's, like, hey, one cleaning thing per day. I know that would sabotage the business, but here's the thing is that the challenge is only for people that are absolutely obsessed with that specific topic.
Right.
It is not going to work for you if you're trying to do a food challenge or a weight loss challenge and you don't thoroughly want to be involved with this on a day-to-day basis and are just just so inspired by it.
Right. And I don't actually think it would kill it wouldn't kill the business for people because, a lot of the big money in the pest control world is made on the tenting and stuff like that. And everybody needs to tent their house when they sell it or when they're buying a new house. They always go through that sort of process. And if you're that authority, you're top of mind when that circumstance comes around. So
it's like real estate agents, like my cousin, who they send the magnets with their face on it in the mail that goes on the fridge.
Yep,
right?
Exactly.
It's right. You're right. Like the pest control business, they could do the 30-day challenge and make it about the cleaning, but they're always coming back to that person because they are an authority figure in pest control.
Yeah, I mean the realtors, they always have their go-to home inspector that they like working with because they're the top of mind and they probably bribe them in some way through dinners and lunches and stuff like that. But they always have their like go-to people that be that go-to person, and a 30-day challenge might be a way to do that. So I feel like it's turned into like kind of a little mastermind session. So, hopefully people find that valuable. But let's go ahead and sort of wrap things up here. The 30-day challenge, is this something that you're planning on doing again, or is this going to be like a one-shot thing, or what are your thoughts on that?
Boy, I don't know, man. I'm like personally myself in participating in it. I don't know. I want to start refining my content more. This has been a good experimental period for myself, but I closed down the registration and put up a waiting list. And so I probably had, maybe about another 30 people asked to join the waiting list if we ever do it again.
Right.
I just have to figure out a way to keep the engagement high if I were going to do it again, to where people still feel like they're getting that personal touch and it's not all automated from me. You know what I'm saying?
So are you participating too? You've done a blog post every day for 15 days?
Yes.
Okay.
15 days.
So, I mean, so the next round, what you're saying is you'll probably do another round, but you'll be more of a facilitator instead of an active participant.
Yes. And that's hard. Like, I don't know, I don't know how people would respond to that if I'm not involved in it every day, because what I'm really thrilled about is the engagement and how well this is going off. But maybe at this point, you have graduates of the challenge who successfully completed it and that, end up running it in the future. And they are the example, and I can help, elevate their brand,
right.
by helping people rise up through the community. So a lot of ideas. I don't consider myself an expert on challenges by any means. This is the first one I participated in, but it's good to take the marketing experience that you and I have and be able to apply it. And I'm glad that I've never done a 30-day challenge because my perception on the way that I choose to do it is not influenced by how everybody else has done it in the past. And I get to make it my own. And I think that's why it's worked really well, is that I just kind of came up with this all from scratch.
Right. Very cool. So where can people go to learn more about you and your challenge and all that kind of stuff?
Learntoblog.com/challenge is the official blog post on the challenge. Obviously,
Okay.
Learn to Blog. I'm sure you've heard it said before. That's a blog. But Bradley will, if you want some more of my raw, unfiltered thoughts, is bradleywill.com, which I talk about everything from entrepreneurship, marketing, lifestyle. Going to get into some more sensitive topics like body image and things that leadership, things that and finances, money that I haven't talked so much about.
So are you going to be creating some sort of case study once this is all done, kind of showing the results and showing people how it all turned out?
I think so. I'd hope so.
Cool.
I'll probably come to you for advice on that.
And I'd imagine if when you do this case study, people will be able to go to learntoblog.com/challenge, and it'll probably be linked up from there somewhere.
Yeah, hopefully.
But make sure you're on the Learn to Blog list, because that's the best way to find out about it.
Yeah, hopefully it's an ongoing thing, and that I can find a way to keep it going and keep it running. But yeah, if you're on the learntoblog.com/challenge waiting list, I'll make sure I have updated communications. I'll let everybody know that had registered for the challenge that what has come of this, because I think it will also inspire the people that didn't participate to maybe do it one day in the future.
Yeah, very cool. So one thing I always like to ask people too is what's your favorite book right now? Like what sort of business book do you recommend right now?
My book of the moment that I'm reading for a multiple time is The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. Great book about breaking through creative blocks and how it perfectly resonates with the challenge of sitting down and doing the work and putting it in. He gives a story in the book. He was having this huge dry spell of he couldn't come up with anything creative, and like his writing was suffering. And then all of a sudden he got this inspiration, and he looked over and he noticed in his sink was a pile of dirty, disgusting dishes. Right. And all of a sudden this spark of inspiration, came up to just go in there and do all the dishes. And he found himself, instead of being disgusted by it, enjoying it. And he tells this story, and it was just really interesting to see is that when we are inspired through our creativity, that single defining moment of the dishes for him ended up sparking this huge, I forget exactly what it was, this writing project for him because he was inspired. And so that book's a really great read and short read if you're looking to tap into your creativity.
Yeah, I read his other book, Turning Pro, which I think you and I were on an airplane back from Baltimore. You finished it while we were in Baltimore. You tossed it over to me on the opposite side of the plane, and and I think I read the entire book while on that plane ride. So they are quick reads, but I love Pressfield's writing style where each chapter is like a page or two. So you read a couple pages, get inspired, set it down, then come back to it. So I think that's a good recommendation.
The interesting thing about Pressfield, one last note, is that he is a novelist. He writes about war. And so he even says in the book on how difficult it was for him to actually write a how-to or like a nonfiction book, because he was always, on writing, because he was always just a novelist. And, so that was really interesting, and I was able to relate to, because in some of my stuff that I'm writing, I'm trying new styles, and I'm really afraid to get outside that pillar post or the instructional how-to stuff. Anyways, I hope that's helpful.
Cool. Yeah. So check out The War of Art. I actually ordered it. It should. It's probably sitting in my mailbox at home because you talked about it on Facebook, and I went and said, well, I love Turning Pro, so I got to go grab this one. And I've had enough people recommend it now, so so it's probably sitting in my mailbox at home right now. So I'll probably be reading that one tonight. But cool. Thanks.
Can I give one more?
Absolutely.
Greatest book that I've never heard anybody else talk about this. It's one of the greatest books I ever read, and it's been a while since I've read it because I gave my copy as a gift to somebody else. It's called Aspire, Aspire, Discovering Your Purpose Through the Power of Words by Kevin Hall. Pick up that book. You'll look at it on Amazon. It's 5-star rated. It's one of the most unbelievable books I've ever read.
I'll have to pick that one up too. Never heard of it. So you're right. So very cool. I'll put that on my list as well. So cool. Thanks for joining me, and thanks for sharing. It went a little bit over the time limit that I expected, but I think a lot of good stuff came out of this, and people kind of got to be a fly on the wall for our little 30-day challenge mastermind.
Awesome. Hey, I love it, man. Love and appreciate you, man.
Awesome.